These two techniques, muffled strings and palm muting, I'm going to cover together because it's more or less doing the same thing, but I'm going to use different hands to do it with. This is one of those where you need a little bit of knack to be able to do it, particularly the palm muting. I have done a video on these before and I'll link to them in the description if you've not played the techniques before. But what I'm really concentrating on now is just to recognise them on the tab, not to teach all the techniques whilst I'm going through this tab explanation. So for the first one, for the muffled strings, what you'll see on the tab is the strings crossed out. Whenever I see a cross on the tab, it either means to me I'm not playing that string, or if it's actually in the middle of the bar, not on the chord diagram, if it's on the tab, it means that I'm going to hit those strings, but I'm going to use my fretting hand to mute those strings. So I'm not actually playing, I'm not fretting any notes, I'm not playing any particular pitch as such. I'm just going to use more of a percussive sound on the strings when I'm dampening them. With that being said, certain pieces will call for you to use these techniques in particular positions on the guitar, and just by the virtue of where you mute the strings or dampen the strings, they will generate different pitches, sometimes harmonics, but that's a lot more advanced technical level than what I'm going to get into at the minute. So for now we're just going to say there's no pitch, it's just going to give us a percussion noise. So on the tab it's asking us to mute, damp the third and fourth strings, my G, my D strings. So if I was to play those just normally, that's what I'm going to get. So what I'm going to do to create the damping, I'm just going to use part of my finger, any of my fingers. I'm not going to use the tips that I use for playing the notes normally. I'm going to use the fleshy part because that's going to give me a better damping action. So the same two strings, my third and fourth strings. Here I'm just damping them somewhere around about the first fret, using the padded part of my finger. You might be able to hear if I change where I'm damping the strings. It does give me a different sound. It's rising up in pitch. In some places I get the natural harmonics that I've discussed earlier, but unless it's giving you specific instructions to play at a particular pitch, all we want to be doing is damping the sound. And usually when you get sort of down low there, you can do it effectively. Obviously if you're playing a piece around about position 5 for example, with a chord and then some damping in between, we're not going to go down and do our damping down there, we'll play where it is. So we'll just do whatever's convenient to us unless we're told otherwise. The palm muting, it's almost the same technique, but rather than using the fretting hand, I'm going to use my picking hand to create the damping on the strings. Now it's called palm muting because I'm going to use the palm of my hand, so this fleshy part here. So normally when I'm playing, if you've been watching, my hand is down here. Just my own personal preference for technique, I'm just sort of lightly touching the bridge on my guitar. For me it gives me a reference point for where I'm playing. Some people don't like touching it at all, they like strumming away. But for palm muting, what I'm going to do is rest the palm of my hand just lightly on the string or the strings that I want to mute to create the damping effect on the strings. So on this tab example you can see it's playing the notes, an open A string with a little PM emblem to say it's palm muted, and that means I'm going to play the notes as I would normally an open A string, but rather than letting it ring, I'm just going to use that fleshy bit of my hand to mute out the notes. As I say, I'll put the link to the more lengthy video I've done on this down in the description, but just to start off with playing the notes openly, and I'll start bringing my damping in, and it gives me more of a percussive sort of sound rather than the ringing out sound. If I do too much damping, it sort of kills the pitch of the note altogether, and it makes it sound a bit more like the muffled string damping technique. So usually, because it's giving us a pitch, A or fifth string, we want to still be able to get some flavour of that pitch whilst we're doing the palm mute. So with the A, we still want that to be able to be distinguishable. So if I was to change it to an E, I can hear the change in note. So as well as the different hand that we're using, the other key difference is that we can hear the pitch with the palm muting, whereas with the muffled strings, the string damping technique as I call it, we're not really hearing the pitch so much, it's just a percussive sound.